Welcome everyone to today's fun-packed review of another massively important game in Nintendo's archives, but before we rush in and examine and review the amazing totally original origin game of the first outing of the now famous Mario Brothers, I'd like to quickly look back just one episode, to episode 34, and answer the picture quiz question that we call What in the World? And I think this is both an easy one, and a nice nod to today's episode star, because this is the Nintendo authorized Super Mario 3 wristwatch game by Nelsonic. So staying with Mario, and shortly we'll be introducing Luigi for the very first time, I present the multi-screen game and watch called Mario Brothers, which was offered for sale back in March 14th of 1983, and reportedly selling 1.25 million copies. This multi-screen game and watch took a dramatically different approach to its design from that of its forerunners. Up until this handheld, the multi-screen design was DS-like, this is clearly book-like. Also, what strikes me as another slight oddity for this unusual unit is that the two main controllers or buttons are on either side of the hinge, which are used for the gameplay of the screen that are situated below. Previously, the controls were always placed on the lower section of the DS-styled consoles, with their clamshell design, the design of these being very effective and stable. However, I find when I'm playing this book-style game, and I am holding it in a normal, unsupported fashion, it can feel quite wobbly, as the two main rocker control buttons are on either side of the unit. I find they can be a little awkward when pressed. I found the action of constantly stabbing the rocker switches up and down on both sides can move the console back and forth on its hinge, making this the first game and watch I felt was a little unstable, or insecure when held and actually played. Also, from an historical point of view, it should be noted that this is the first visitation of Mario's brother Luigi. Alongside the arcade release with the same title, both were released in 1983. We see the brothers busily loading crates with bottles, then they're boxed up and tied together before getting to the truck in the loading bay. If we've credited the previous multi-screen Game & Watches as being DS-like, perhaps the overall shape of this might be more likened to the Game Boy Advance SP. And the more I research the real history of Nintendo, the more I find the line of breadcrumbs of their design evolution, the more I see where they will reappear in the decades to come. I'm not simply referring to the DS and SP shape designs references. I'm not even restricting myself to the obvious use of the Famicom color scheme, before we even had a Famicom, or the NES color scheme for that matter. Look at my episode on the Game & Watch Turtle Bridge. But much more than all that, look at the characters that were released. We'll recognize many of them so easily today, but these had their genesis moment right here, in these primitive systems in and amongst these old-fashioned LCD Game & Watches. Think about it, we get to meet Mario, Luigi, Donkey Kong, and even the Mr. Game & Watch man from Smash Bros. For the very first time. Given the production code of MW-56, this Game & Watch Mario Brothers, will see the launch of the short-lived book-styled multi-screen systems. Two further book-style systems will follow before they're discontinued forever. These will be Rain Shower and Lifeboat, which we will review in the next two episodes. The instructions are detailed and comprehensive, starting with the table of contents and then showing a schematic of the unfolded game listing all the primary features and characters. The section on inserting the correct batteries and guidance on when they should be replaced is as relevant to today's collectors as it was to the original owners back in '83. Setting the time and alarm was detailed in a coherent and logical fashion. The value back then of a bedside clock with alarm should not be underestimated. Mario as a character himself is so new that Nintendo feels the need to reference him to the previous Donkey Kong games. They set about introducing for the very first time a brand new character called Luigi. They briefly set out a quick overview in the how to play section how the game works, mentioning in the overview the bottling factory, the conveyor belts and the truck. They then set about explaining the function of both the left and right screens. This is highly likely because it was a brand new concept back in '83. The control buttons on the left and right are identical. They are both of a rocker-style design, affording only a limited up and down movement of your characters. As we get to the section in the instructions on beginning the game on page 6 of the booklet, it goes on to explain the various game keys and their functions. It further explains how the two options for this system, Game Mode A and Game Mode B, differ. The point scoring system seems easy enough to understand, with each case of bottled water loaded onto the conveyor belt receiving a single point. Each fully loaded truck, which takes 8 cases to fill up, receiving another 10 points. Finally, the instructions booklet explains that there is a maximum high score for this game of 999 points. Misses or lost lives are very simple to understand. If a case is dropped, a life is lost. Lose 3 lives and the game is over. As with previous games, the lost lives are restored at 300 points, but if no lives are needed to be restored, the system enters a bonus round called Chance Time. In Chance Time, all points are doubled until a miss is made. The walkthrough of gameplay is achieved by using a cartoon strip style format. In the section to the left here we see that the cases originate from the lower right screen. This is Mario's side. Once he's in the right location to receive the empty case, the game automatically places it on the conveyor. The next image explains that Luigi is operating in the left screen. He picks up the empty case that Mario started off on the conveyor belt, and adds 2 bottles. As the case travels up the various conveyor belts, more bottles are added. As we move from page 8 to page 9, the illustrations and captions continue, and we're back to Mario. He's now up on the next level, and there's 4 bottles in the crate. The last illustration on page 9 shows Luigi loading the wrapped and bound case onto the waiting truck. As we arrive at page 10, the illustrations wrap up with the truck driver yelling at Mario and Luigi to hurry up and get the last 2 cases loaded. Once loaded, the truck pulls away, and our brothers take a short but well-earned rest, just before the foreman shows up and yells at them to get back to work. The caution page is pretty standard. The bit on hot and cold environments is quite interesting, especially the bit about leaving it in a car which is exposed to direct sunlight. That's good info to know. Also, the fact that LCD displays slow considerably in cold environments is equally useful, but importantly also underscores the limitations of this type of technology. The exposed ribbon cable on the hinge was a known failing and weak spot for these devices. It would be remedied by the Nintendo DS system, where it becomes fully enclosed. Viewing angles are important with this style of display due to the polarizer. The specifications list technical data and unit tolerances. So let's view a little gameplay, enough to underscore what we've been explaining up until now anyway. If you look at the screen, you see it showing that it's in game mode B. This is identified on the right side, on Mario's side, and is seen in the void under the first conveyor belt. This game mode selection, game mode B, is identical to game mode A, except the player must use more coordination and technique, as well as better place timing to achieve the objectives. Game mode A is really for the novice player. The game Mario Bros. Was revisited several times, initially in the Game & Watch Gallery 3 cartridge designed for the Game Boy Color. Then again in the Game & Watch Gallery 4 designed for the Game Boy Advance system, hosting much better graphics. A pink-colored how-to-play slip of paper accompanied the original game. These are frequently lost in today's collector market, making them super rare. While talking about rarities, this carded version was Nintendo's attempt to sell off surplus stock at the end of its product life. These bargain basement carded versions are now extra rare and support a growing collector's market. My personal preference remains with the original boxed launch edition games, and the shippers. And understandably, many of the regional variants still support a growing and dedicated group of collectors. And the most common variant out there is the Japanese one. This is often classed as the standard game. Other regional distributors include the UK's CGL version, then there's America and their pocket-sized brand. This is always coupled to the amazing artwork on their boxes. Germany had their own distributors too, called Trikotronic. They supplied the German language versions in Europe. While in Australia the distributor went by the name Futuretronics. And in France the distributor was a company known as JA21 who francophiled the Game & Watches for their native speakers. The next variant is a promotional version from Singapore, a food and beverage company called Paka, branded both the box and the handheld with their logo in a giveaway competition. These are highly sought after, and some replica ones have started to appear, so be cautious here if you decide to enter the sphere of collecting. And that just about wraps up our review of the Game & Watch multi-screen game called Mario Bros. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the show. Now, before I do the usual requests, such as liking us, subscribing, or leaving us an encouraging comment, I'd like to ask this episode's picture quiz question that we here call the What in the World Challenge. This is for hardcore Nintendo fans only. The item is super insanely rare. But, if you know, leave me a comment in the section below. If you're stumped, join me in our next episode for the big reveal. And now for the obligatory requests. Hit that like button, better still smash the subscribe icon and follow our journey. Activating the alarm bell helps to get informed of our regular new content updates. So with that all said and done, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.